drugs.
So, what exactly is DPH? Diphenhydramine, commonly referred to as DPH, is the active ingredient in Benadryl, Unisom, Suminex, and other allergy medication. It is a first-generation over-the-counter antihistamine, which means that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, making it a deliriant at higher doses. It is commonly used to treat allergies, insomnia, and nausea, but I highly advise using other medication for these purposes if you have a choice. It is also an anticholinergic, which means that it blocks the action of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine from binding to its receptors. Acetylcholine affects both the central and peripheral nervous system in several ways. That basically means that it affects your cognitive functions such as memory, language and learning abilities, perception, etc., as well as the regulation of your bodily functions like your heart rate and motor skills, and is responsible for activating your muscles as well. It also greatly affects your autonomic nervous system, which is the main mechanism in control of the fight or flight response. To put it simply, it is basically a reaction of your body to something perceived as stressful or frightening to prepare it to, well, fight or flight in that situation. Diphenhydramine falls into a category of drugs called deliriants, as I've said before. The so-called trypin on this drug is nothing else but anticholinergic tox syndrome, a synonym for an overdose. The more you take, the higher you have a chance of getting a seizure, and they are very common on DPH. Tremors and random muscle twitches are also very common. You may find it hard or almost impossible to move because of the blocked action of acetylcholine. Your body dries out as DPH dehydrates you, and you get the worst cottonmouth you can ever imagine. As it messes with your bodily functions, especially with your heart rate can skyrocket up to insane and very dangerous levels. You may find it really difficult to pee, and you get the worst case of restless leg syndrome you can ever imagine. Your memory is greatly affected to the point where you can black out and not remember a single thing, making the drug even less worth it. Dosing over 700 mg is almost guaranteed blackout, and it can even cause death by a heart attack. As for the hallucinations it causes, they are very inconsistent. People usually report seeing things like bugs, spiders, shadow people, and other similar sinister hallucinations, but it's very random and you may never see any of these things, so please don't try to chase for them. Auditory hallucinations, such as people talking, completely random noises such as knocks coming out of nowhere, animal sounds, or entirely made-up music playing are very common too. This may sound fun at first, but when you can't tell it apart from reality, it's really not.
Snake, and I think they changed how to orient it, to make it, and that fixed it. Back then, it used to be colors. Nowadays, every kid is one more time. Appreciate.
You can completely forget where you are, who you are, how to communicate, and even that you took any drug in the first place. Closed-eye visuals usually consist of doing something and then snapping out of it just to realize you were browsing Reddit or chatting with your friends behind your eyelids or doing a completely random activity from your everyday life. It is also very common to feel insects crawling on your skin, which can cause insane discomfort. Here are some stories to demonstrate how bad it can get. What a really high dose of DPH can cause. I was in a completely white space, and the whole time it was just ambient random noises like whirls, buzzes, crawls, screams, voiced whispering, lion roars, jet engines, and streaking lights. The sensations felt like sandpaper was being rubbed all over me, and I felt very cold. I can't put it into words, but I felt like this was the longest part of the trip. My sense of time was so distorted, I believe I was in the white space longer than I've been alive. What was less than 1 day legitimately, wholly completely fucking felt like 5 to 6 years minimum. I have 6 to 10 years worth of auditory and visual memories from that. 6 to 10 years of my life have been forgotten and replaced with those auditory voices, streaks, and noises. And here's one more. Driving on it. One time, I drove on 2 grams about 6 hours into my trip because I had to go to work early, but I was so confused on the road. I kept swerving because I was hallucinating people and objects in the road, couldn't see the traffic lights until I blew straight through them, wasn't following any of the speed limits, kept hitting my brakes and my gas pedal at the same time multiple times too quickly, had no idea where I was or what I was doing, didn't recognize any streets or any buildings, kept almost passing out. I kept jerk stopping onto the side of the road because I didn't want to crash. Everything was too bright because of photosensitivity. I couldn't hear, every noise was like muted. I was shaking so bad, could barely keep my hands on my steering wheel, and I ultimately rolled my car into a ditch and over a fence. Luckily, I didn't hit anyone, but I'm never ever driving at the dose ever again. This is honestly one of the scariest stories I've ever read. Now, something about DPH addiction, possibly one of the worst addictions you can ever have. Despite its dysphoric and psychotic effects, DPH can be insanely addictive. Some users have reported that for some it's even more addictive than meth or heroin, almost as if there was something inviting them back, yet they can't describe what. DPH tolerance raises very quickly, which leaves you wanting to take more and more to chase the hallucinations and disconnection from reality. Habituation does cause both physical and psychological dependency, and very likely severe and irreversible brain damage along with organ damage if you don't stop yourself soon enough. 99% of people regret ever trying the drug in the first place, so please think about it a little more before you do something that could potentially destroy you forever. The worst thing is that it's very cheap and available almost everywhere and to anyone, especially if you live in the US. So if you're struggling with any addiction yourself and want to get better, I've left a few links in the description. Just please don't try to do this alone. There is nothing you should be ashamed of, no matter how it may seem from your point of view. You can also reach to me if that may help. As for the actual damage it causes, please know that this is very individual, but damage from DPH can be permanent and very severe, as I've said before. DPH is known to be both very neurotoxic and cardiotoxic. To be sad, it's bad for almost every organ in your body, but your brain and heart the most. People have reported increased anxiety, changes in behavior and personality even after taking the drug once. You may end up with increased heart rate even when you're sober, reaching to dangerous levels up to over 200 BPM. It's possible to develop seizures as a result of frequent abuse. Severe and possibly the worst form of HPPD or hallucinogen perception persisting disorder, leaving you pretty much with possibly even permanent psychosis, is also not that uncommon. My friend who allowed me to use a part of his story describes it as not being able to tell whether he's sober or tripping as a result of his actions. He also doesn't recognize himself in the mirror anymore and feels like he's turned into a whole another person, a character from a video game to be specific. No, I'm not joking. He's also pretty much guaranteed to have dementia because of his abuse, and his motor skills are, to put it simply, fucked. You can literally be left seeing giant spiders and shadow people for the rest of your life, even if you were a healthy person before, because of stupid allergy medication. Even taking therapeutic doses can contribute to early onset of dementia later in life, and with doing high doses frequently, it's pretty much guaranteed. Depersonalization and derealization is also very common after doing DPH. Taking it enough may cause you to partially or even fully lose lucidity and become delirious even sober. Your cognitive functions may be greatly affected to a point where you may not be able to function like a normal human being anymore. Imagine something like very severe ADHD that you induced yourself with seizures and psychosis on top. Now here's a story I found on Reddit of what the consequences of a severe DPH addiction may look like. I'm basically not even here right now mentally. I'm living in a dream world, psychosis, delirium, derealization, depersonalization, dementia 24/7. I have seizures, my heart rate stays in the 170 to 240 BPM range, I'm always dehydrated, I've lost way too much weight, I can't speak coherently, I stutter and mispronounce words all the time, I have the worst eyesight I've ever had, I don't have any ability to remember anything, I can't remember what I just said or what someone asked me. I barely sleep, I only get about 7 hours each week. I'm always tripping, hallucinating, and my blood work is so awful. Been to the hospital 5 times this year alone, and I have to get a blood transfusion on Monday because I am severely anemic due to malnutrition and very heavy nosebleeds. It basically fucking sucks. My chest always hurts and I'm always delirious. If this alone is not enough of a reason for you to stay away from this drug, then I don't know what is. And here's another story I found on Reddit of a guy who took an insane high dose once. Aftermath. I quit my job for this trip and I'm still unemployed. No insurance, but I get Obamacare which covered a part of it. I go for dialysis weekly now. I am on dialysis and have permanent liver damage. permanent brain damage, as well as cognitive reduction, reduced brain size, and irregular heartbeat. Original account here. You guys didn't believe me despite the evidence, so I went to great lengths to ensure you the people know what a 4-gram trip is like. If you notice any changes in behavior, it's because I had an epiphany on DPH and see everything differently now. Please note that this is after taking a really high dose, but these things occur to a smaller extent very often, and especially with habituation. Well, thank you everyone who made it this far, and I really hope this video helps at least someone. I have many friends who are struggling with this addiction right now, and I just don't want any more people to completely ruin their lives just to see a few spiders. Well, and that's about it. See ya!